That's a little bit better. It is a stunner from Fabio Quagliarella. Top again for Dzeko, who's in for Roma and scores.
Ciao ragazzi, and welcome to the preview Della Madonnina of Serie A Sit Down. I'm Frank Crivello. He's Richard Carmen. Ciao, Richard.
Ciao, Frank. How we doing, man? It's been a couple weeks.
It's been a while, yeah. It's been a while. We needed to take a siesta after the craziness of the restart.
Oh my goodness.
And how everything unfolded. The Scudetto that nobody else seemed to want, and the maybe reemergence of Milan, and some really good football being played and all of that. So yeah, I needed to take a break from all of that. As I said on our review with Martino and with Matt, that I actually needed the break after all the victory laps I took for picking Ciro Immobile as capocannoniere and saying Pioli would be a successful manager for Milan and all this other stuff. So I'm refreshed. I'm ready to go. Season 5, Richard. How about it?
Wow. We didn't have gray hairs when we started this, and now we both have gray hair.
Well, I don't have any hair.
I do.
Yeah. Somehow I'd rather have the gray hair than lose the hair, but it's
Touché.
It's what it is.
It doesn't stop growing apparently. So
yeah. So if you are joining us on the YouTube channel, probably while you are making your Sunday gravy for dinner later tonight, or just getting done with that heavy Sunday brunch, don't take a nap just yet. We've got plenty of content to cover here. It is our season preview, and to do this, we did bring in a guest. He is earning his first cap on the Serie A Sit Down. He's on the staff at Di Marzio. He's the content editor at One Football and co-host of the Here We Go podcast with Fabrizio Romano. We say benvenuto to Francesco Porzio.
Thank you, guys. Grazie. It's a pleasure for me, and here we go, as we say, right?
there you go.
Yeah, let's get some Serie A going here. We've I watched enough Premier League, and by the way, happened to see Leicester's two ex Serie A players linking up on their first goal today. Was nice to see. Prior to Castan, and then also another ex Serie A player, Mo Salah, getting a hat trick. But Martin Keown has a totally different opinion about Serie A players than we do. But enough about that. Francesco, why don't you start by telling us about about your background and a little bit about the Here We Go podcast as well with Fabrizio.
Yes. So, I started to do this job while I was still at university, and I was, trying to understand what to do with my life, basically. And sport journalism was always like a dream for me. And it happened that I had the occasion to start directly with Di Marzio, basically, a part of some previous experiences that I had. And, you start with a big star, right? The superstar of Italian journalism in this field. And he was totally a mentor for me because he taught me everything. He was a pain in the ass also at the beginning because I had to start, so he had to tell me everything. It was really demanding, of course, because in this job you need to do that. And so after that, I basically had the opportunity to go to Berlin to work as content editor at One Football, and I'm still doing that. And I'm still doing Di Marzio. I'm still doing a lot of things, and since I wanted to be even more busy in my life, I decided to start a podcast with Fabrizio Romano, who is also, I started to work with him when we were working together for Di Marzio, but we are also very close friends right now. And we just started this new podcast, and I started last week, and now it's going to be a weekly podcast, and it's on Patreon, and it's going pretty well, and we want to do more in the future, so it's a nice start.
For our listeners who don't know about the podcast, when does it get released? It's weekly, you said. So tell us about when it gets released.
It's weekly. Every Wednesday at 3 p.m. we release a new episode. And as I said also before, it's a beginning for us. We didn't know how to start really, and we just wanted to do something that was easy to do because we don't have much time. So it's an audio podcast for now. And we try to give more insights or behind the scenes or world of transfer market, which is super complicated. And sometimes, fans for some clubs ask just, Sancho news, Thiago news. I'm saying about Premier League right now, right? Just news, right? Yeah. Okay, but it's difficult to say, Sancho news every day, because what can I say today about Sancho I didn't say yesterday, right? So we try to explain more what we can say in few tweets or few words, and but just to be clear, and we want to be clear in this, the news will always stay on social media, free for everyone. It's not like that we are shifting, and making money out of the news, right? That's never going to happen, because we don't want to do that, of course. Right. It's just to give more insights, basically, and that's our aim.
Excellent stuff. When it comes to transfers and when it comes to the Mercato, I always have the same, what's the word I'm looking for? See, this is what happens when you take a siesta from the podcasting. You forget your vocabulary a little bit, right? No, but I have a disclaimer. And it's just what I strictly follow. Unless the club has officially announced it, it's not true. However, I also have now started saying, if Di Marzio is reporting it, if Romano is reporting it, it does have legs. There's something to it, because I think if there's something I can give you guys credit for, it's you guys are there. You guys are right on with the, we have to weed through what Corriere dello Sport is saying, what Gazzetta is saying, what some of the British tabloids might be saying, and so on and so forth. But when we follow you guys and you guys have the information, it's solid, and it's become trusted.
First of all, thanks, because it's really appreciated. This is what we know, what we want. And today is very difficult to break a news with something that nobody said before. Yeah, that's the big difference with the past. So it's very, if I remember this summer, if I think about this summer, honestly, the only transfer that nobody expected was Hakimi to Inter, probably. That was just, boom, that's it, done. I'm talking about Serie A, of course, right now. So it's very difficult to, be the first every time, because that's also a tricky game, because if you try to be first every time, sometimes you can be wrong, right? Because, if we have to say everything we know, everything, the little talk, the little agent talk, the little WhatsApp, it's going to be even messier than it actually is right now. So we try to, the big idea behind this is to say what's really going on, basically. So be transparent as much as we can. So we say the things as they stand. We don't want to pretend to say, that's definitely going to happen. Because otherwise, I don't want to make comparison with other journalists, because it's not my way of working. But, right. Last season, the Guardiola thing to Juve was a huge demonstration of this. There were people claiming to know insiders in the club, just because they have the car of the mother of Guardiola. Really? So, because that's the world of social media right now. I have to be thankful to social media. Otherwise, I couldn't meet Di Marzio, I couldn't meet Fabrizio, I couldn't work in this field. So that's the positive side. But also there is the negative side, which is everyone has, the space to say things and can be trustable for some people. So it's difficult to, be part of this world. And the only way I think you can survive, and that's why, the best journalists like Di Marzio, but also there are others, of course, are the ones who try just to say the truth, what's going on. Maybe they're wrong, because Di Marzio was the one who said 1 week before Ronaldo went to Juventus, said, as far as I know, it's not that done yet. And then actually it was. So, there are some risks, and he's never right. He's never always right. He's never always wrong. We try to do our best, and that's the only way we can survive in this crazy world.
I think so. The hardest part of doing what you guys do is that weeding through all, part of my French, all the bullshit. Because there are so many rumors, like you said, everyone knows somebody, and they think they have the inside track, and it's got to be difficult to to weed through all that and actually just, like you said, say what you know, what's true, and don't try to exaggerate anything else, because otherwise it looks bad on you. Another one you mentioned, Hakimi. Another one I thought was surprising, at least from us on the outside, was Weston McKennie to Juventus. I follow Schalke very, very closely, and Juventus wasn't even on the radar from the Schalke perspective. And then just to hear that happen, and all of a sudden he's done, you're like, wait, what? What just happened? It's a great example of when people not really knowing what's going on, and then all of a sudden it happens.
Yeah, I think if I can add something here,
please.
Sometimes there is in Italy. I mean, you guys know how the Italian world works, right? So it's like we pretend to know everything. Sometimes we pretend that we are. If it doesn't come out, right, what?
No, not Italians. Us, really?
So sometimes we just need to be careful of what other people say, because many news, the Hakimi one, for example, if you remember, the night before on El Chiringuito, which is one of the best TV shows in Spain, best also in let's say it's very, I don't know if you know about it, but it's like they're very humoristic also, but they have some journalists who have infos, and there is like Edu Aguirre, who is one of the best friends of Cristiano Ronaldo, for example, and he said that Hakimi was close to join Inter, was one of the options for Inter, and nobody said that before. So if you're just careful to do these things that are going around the world, you can arrive first also in Italy for other news like this one, right? While other times it's just we pretend that if it doesn't come from us, it's just fake news, wherever, and then it's not, because McKinney, for example, Sport 1, they broke the news first in the morning, and then it was true. So that's why, for example, Fabrizio Romano is amazing also, because he knows everything about what they say in Argentina, what they say in Brazil, what they say in wherever there are some news and magazines and TVs, he's there. So that's why I think he's one of the best out there.
Amazing. I want to ask if we, based on what there's still a lot that's still out there, and there's still plenty of time left here in this Mercato for deals to get done. What hasn't gotten done yet that you're surprised by? What can you share with our Serie A sit-down listeners that we shouldn't be surprised to see happen? I mean, I want to throw a couple of names at you right off the bat, just kind of doing some quick research. Plenty of talk about Luis Suarez going to Juventus, but it hasn't happened yet. Today, we're starting to see there's talk that Comiso has lowered his price on Federico Chiesa, making it attractive to AC Milan. These are the things that are floated out there. I mean, is there any validity to either of those? Is there any potential to either of those, or what are we? What's yet to be done that that you might be able to share with us that are the transfers that are a real possibility?
Okay, let me say something first, because I always said that in these weeks. I feel we are not even in September for some reasons. I don't know, right. I don't know if you have the same feeling, but season is starting next week, and transfer window is going to end in 3 weeks, 4 weeks?
Yeah, October 5th or something.
Yeah, doesn't look to me, right? It seems that we are like in beginning of June. There are like talks. There is because it's now it's clubs. The financial situation of the clubs completely changed after the coronavirus crisis, right? Yeah. Even more than one expected, probably. And I remember the interview of Fabio Paratici to Sky Sport. I think it was May or April, one of those months. He said very clearly, listen, this will be a transfer market of, we have to be very, very, very good as sporting directors, because we need to find ways to loan players, to do swaps, to do a lot of things that couldn't happen in the past. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if there will be like 2 years loan or 3 years loan, a sort of, longer loans, you know what I mean? So it will be more complex transfer market, way more interesting for me, to be honest, because, I love this part of football. So it's way more interesting. But about what you were saying, Frank, honestly, the Suarez one is very, very weird to me, because there are a lot of factors here. Like the Italian exam, it's just strange, isn't it? Like it's just, I never heard of that, something like that before. Doesn't mean that it's not going to happen, but I find it, I never really believed like in the Suarez to Juve 100%, and all these things are like, I don't know if that's actually gonna happen or not. I can say that Edin Dzeko is a target for Juve and always be a target for Juve in the next weeks if they don't arrive to Suarez. So totally for me, if Suarez doesn't go to Juve, Dzeko will be the one that we look for, and they will push more and they will try to push more for him. I knew from like the beginning of June that the idea was to do Dzeko to Juve, Milik to Roma, and Napoli getting Under, change it to Under. That was the idea, the triangle that they had in mind, these three clubs. And, none of these happened yet, so might be that that's all, everything was wrong, or maybe it's still going on and we don't know yet. I think Suarez can join Juventus. I don't want to say that we won't join Juventus, but it's not as easy as everyone is saying. Plus, there are 4 weeks remaining, and when there were the Messi talks 3 weeks ago, or 2 weeks ago, when was it? I was always thinking, do you realize that here we are talking about the best football player in the world that earns for a club, so with taxes, 80 million per year, and they want 700 million, and this has to happen in 4 weeks? Like, how is that possible?
Not realistic.
No. Not realistic. There is no, probably if the Messi thing was happening like in May and April, Messi was going to leave Barcelona at the end. But there was no time. There was no time to trials or to speak with Barcelona. It was very, very complicated, and there is no really time, right? And I expect, just to conclude this window on transfers, I expect, honestly, the last week or the last 20 days or the last 15 days of this transfer window to be the most chaotic one in the history of transfer market. I have this feeling. Yeah. I don't know why. I just look at the rosters of the clubs, and I see Inter Milan with 33 players, and they have João Mario, they have Raja Nainggolan, they have Perisic, they have Dalbert, they are all still there. So there are so many clubs that need to sell players, but there are no money, so they need to wait, and probably the other clubs know that. So it's just a poker game, right? So everyone is waiting, but at one point they need to sell and buy. Right? Otherwise, it's gonna be like this.
I was gonna follow up with the Dzeko comment. I'm glad you brought it up. Is that it's funny because that all those possibilities that you mentioned, Milik came out and said, at least what we saw is that he's refusing to leave Napoli, right? So, how reliable is it, or how possible is it that Dzeko can go to Juventus, and what do Roma do from that? Because if Milik is their option and he's refusing to leave Napoli, where does that leave Roma if he does leave Juventus?
No, I understand what you're saying. I think they are, of course, they are connected because they are connected. But they are all different players that have different ambitions in a way. So I think Dzeko, he's not like 100% convinced of leaving Roma because he loves the city, he loves the club. He's loved by the fans right now, so he doesn't really need to need Roma. But when Juventus call you and you're going to play with Cristiano Ronaldo, you're being managed by Andrea Pirlo, which is a plus right now for many players. It's understandable that he can say, okay, if Juventus call me, I want to leave, right? But until now, there was never, Juventus are still like, we want to wait. They are like considering many options. Remember that the option number one for Juventus until 6 months ago was Milik, if you remember. It was for months we were saying Milik is going to Juve, right? And then when Juventus told Milik, okay, we decided to not go for you, he was like, that's quite disappointing. So he decided he was not convinced by Roma, but also because Roma have Dzeko right now. So he's probably saying, well, I'm going there with Dzeko, I'm not playing, I stay at Napoli if I have to go there and and not having the possibility. That's why I think they're all connected, and that's why those players are not moving yet. Remember, the Milik has a contract expiring in 2021, so it means that if he doesn't leave this summer, he will leave for free next year.
Yeah.
So it's
we're probably
Napoli also bought Petagna, who did amazingly in the first friendly. There is Osimhen. So I mean, there is no space for Milik right now at Napoli. So I don't see how he can stay.
Inter. So we can basically expect a fire sale from Inter sometime before the window shuts because of all of the players that they have, and there are going to be some guys going to some other clubs, and they're going to be going at something that could potentially be less than their value. I mean, a guy like João Mario, I don't know how much value he has anymore. But a guy like Raja Nainggolan, who put on some games for Cagliari during the course of the season, he could be of use for somebody, and you could probably get a player like him for a bargain. So that'll be interesting. I have a question. We brought up Osimhen. 77 million. I watched him a handful of times. I don't see 77 million. I mean, did Napoli overspend?
That's a very tough question, because when we say overspend, what do you mean? Like,
here's what I would spend 77 million. I would spend 77 million on Romelu Lukaku. I would spend 77 million on Duvan Zapata. Those are when I look at strikers in Serie A right now, and I'm looking at 5 attributes that you better tick all the boxes to be worth the 77 million. And that is, hold up and link up play, physicality, pace, box presence, and finishing. Those are 5 big things for me. And I think that out of all of the strikers in Serie A, Lukaku and Duvan Zapata are there at an elite level in all 5 of those areas. And then you've got Belotti, Immobile, Ibra, and Caputo, who I think are just below that. And only because one of those 5 attributes, they're not elite. They're very good. They're just not elite. If I'm spending 77 million on a striker, I better be getting the next Lukaku. I better be getting the next Duvan Zapata.
No, I understand what you're saying. Honestly, it's totally understandable. But I mean, to be clear, Napoli didn't spend 77 million. We have to be honest. They said they spent less because they included some players with Lille. So it was at the end was like 20 million less. So at the end it was like 50, 55 or something. But still a lot of money, of course. It's more Lozano, for example, the last year they spent 40 million and it was a disaster in his first season in Serie A. But it's understandable what you're saying. I try to explain more what was the idea behind the club. Probably they were thinking, Osimhen, of course, is not a player that it's ready right now. It's like a potential for the future. He's very young. He did amazingly in France with Lille, but it wasn't, as you said, it's not Lukaku, who are sure you're getting a player who scores 30 goals per season. But potentially he is. So probably they decided to go for him. I think Napoli tried, and I'm sure Napoli tried for Immobile first. That was the idea, to bring Immobile back to Napoli, but then it's impossible to negotiate with Lotito, and also you have to think about the salary. When we think about transfer market, it's super easy to think about the fee, and that's also because it's you think just about the club spent 20 millions for that player or 40 millions for that player, but how much did they spend for the salary per year? Right. Which is the impact of that financially. It's even more important for the club rather than the fee. So because it's through the years, right? So you have to consider also this factor. That's why, for example, Cristiano Ronaldo was a huge impact for Juventus, not because of the 110 million fee that they paid to Real Madrid, but because they spend 60 million per year for having Cristiano Ronaldo playing for Juve. Then he gets 30 because that's the taxation of Italy, but that's another thing. So the impact of the salary, it's another. And Osimhen doesn't earn as much money because it's super young and he doesn't demand that. While Lukaku earns more than almost 10 million per year, right? So very different.
Right. I think it's always hard to talk about the how much the fee is too, because the valuation really is to each of the teams and how much they need a player in that position in particular. Like for Napoli, they needed a striker, and we're looking at some of these other clubs. everyone wants to look at all the big clubs and how they've done this offseason. And they've done pretty well. All of them have done pretty well. But a lot of the smaller clubs are making the waves as well. Sassuolo, for example, they've done really well. They've unloaded some players. They bought some players. Atalanta's obviously doing some great things. Benevento's doing some excellent things. Who of the lower club teams do you feel has done really well so far in the offseason?
Atalanta, I don't consider them a lower team anymore. So
yeah.
They've arrived.
I can't consider
Richard has really high standards.
I do.
I would say I was impressed by the teams that come up from Serie B this season. Honestly, I saw Crotone buying very good players. I saw Benevento, of course, as you said, bringing back Glick, who is, for example, a huge signing for a club like Benevento. And I'm not surprised, but Spezia also is doing some interesting moves because they have an interesting owner. He's a crazy guy, and they're doing a transfer window that is interesting. So I think the three that come up from Serie B are probably the ones that are doing the best one down there. And then if I think other clubs, probably those three. And let me think. Torino did a quite interesting transfer window, buying these tactical players for Giampaolo. That I think they can help him a lot. And then there is Cagliari, who every season, every transfer window, they do very good moves. Then we have to see with the new manager how they will go. But I think they also did a nice transfer window.
Yeah, they made Marco Rog and Giovanni Simeone permanent. Razvan Marin.
That's an interesting one, Marin. That's a total. Because there is a playmaker that Cagliari didn't have a playmaker probably since Daniele Conti, so they needed one, and he's a potentially a very good player. They pay him 14 million euros, so he's a very important signing.
Okay, and then looks like a couple of youngsters also, Gabriele Zappa and Ricardo Sotil arriving.
Godin might come too.
Watch out for these two because Sotil was very good also in the preseason last year with Fiorentina.
Sure.
And Gabriele Zappa is considerable one of the best young defender in the Italian football. So pay attention to him because I think he will be a surprise for the season.
Yeah, it's Cagliari went with some household names, in terms of their mercato last season, and now they've shifted that policy slightly to bring in some younger guys. I'm looking forward to watching all three of these players and see how they fit in Di Francesco's system. Question on, so as for the ones that have arrived, I always like looking at this and I'm saying, okay, well, you forget about how much money was spent or how much you got for, how much of a bargain. I think about fit on the pitch. Last season, I thought, out of all of the transfers for Serie A, the absolute perfect fit was Manuel Azzari going to Lazio from Spal. Now, looking at who's arrived or who's made a new home, which player or players, do you look at and say, this is perfect for him, this is perfect for the club?
The first one that comes in my mind is Hakimi to Inter.
Agreed.
To Inter because he's a perfect player for Antonio Conte's system. While I was really, I have to be honest with you, and I'm not just saying I was right, but Eriksen, I couldn't see him play for Inter because, tactically speaking, he's not useful for Conte's system, to be honest.
No.
And from also his way of playing, I couldn't see him playing for Inter in the 3-5-2. I couldn't see him there. While Hakimi, I don't think will be, and I'm ready to be wrong, but will be immediately one of the top, wingers of Serie A. Will be a boom from the beginning. Probably he will need time. That's why I'm expecting D'Ambrosio to start, for example. Classic. Exactly.
I think of what Conte did with Victor Moses at Chelsea, and I see Hakimi.
Also, Hakimi, guys, we are talking. Before he was joining Inter, I was considering him after Alexander Arnold, probably the number 2 young best right back in the world, probably.
I don't have a problem saying that at all. I don't have a problem saying that at all. And considering that we put our team of the season together last season, and we couldn't put a left back where a right back should be. This league is starving for right backs, even if it's a right wing back like Hakimi. But I mean, I'm looking at him and I'm thinking of Victor Moses at Chelsea, only faster, and also better technique and can score goals. I mean, so I think it's a perfect fit. Richard, I think another guy that I raved about this signing a few weeks ago was Atalanta getting Alexei Miranchuk from Lokomotiv Moscow. Yeah. You look at Atalanta and it's clear what they go after in the market. They go after guys who create chances. And I watched Miranchuk play for Lokomotiv Moscow a handful of times in the Champions League. This is a guy that creates. Yeah. I was the one. It was investment purposes. But Miranchuk is a guy, he creates chances. Much like, Malinovsky creates chances. Papu Gomez creates chances. Ilicic creates chances. These wingbacks that play in Gasparini's system, they create chances. And I think that Miranchuk comes in and fits in. I don't know if it's going to be immediate, but I think that he's in there too. As far as I'd put Hakimi as probably the most perfect fit, but I really like the idea of Alexei Miranchuk at Atalanta.
I expect a lot this season, honestly, from Malinowski. I think I'm expecting so much for him because last season he was unbelievable to be the first season in Serie A, coming from Gent, who is a totally different league. But this year, I'm expecting him to do that step up. So I will be disappointed if he doesn't. Let's say that. Atalanta, you're right. I mean, they have strikers. They have an amazing roster because they have Papu Gomez, who will stay at Atalanta. We can say that. So he decided to stay, to refuse the offer from Qatar. So he will stay at Atalanta. There is Miranchuk now. There is Malinowski. There is Muriel. There is Zapata. And there is Ilicic, because Ilicic is still there. Probably we have to wait a bit for him, but if he comes back, I mean, we are talking about top level here, but not only in Italy. I mean, there are amazing strikers here. So,
yeah, indeed. I mean, Muriel hardly started and he was one of the leading scorers in Serie A last season. So, Richard, who do you have in mind as far as who you've seen arriving at different places? That are best fit.
It's funny. Not many people knew who Weston McKennie were, in Serie A at least. And we knew when Pirlo was when he was hired what he was looking for. He told you in the press conference exactly what kind of style he was looking for. And it seems that Weston McKennie checks all those boxes. And if you look at the friendly, just today against Novara, yes, it's Novara, but you could see how aggressive he was, getting the ball back. This is the style of player that I think fits perfectly into Pirlo's system. He still has some polishing to do. He's very raw still, but I think the hustle that he has there can help, draw his teammates to play better. What'd you make of the arrival of him with Juventus fitting in there?
No, yeah, I'm super excited about Juventus this season. To be honest, I couldn't wait to see Pirlo actually coaching. I was not expecting to see him at Juventus at first, to be honest. But I think you're right. He can be totally a good sign for them. I mean, Kulusevski also have to say it's my number 2 here. After Hakimi, I say Kulusevski because I saw him last year at Parma, and unbelievable how good he was. And also you saw today the assist to Cristiano Ronaldo, so he didn't start well, badly, right? And Juventus will be interesting to see also which striker they will go for. And if it's going to be Suarez, if it's going to be Dzeko, but totally interesting to see you. And the last name I want to say here is, not because everyone is a transfer, so I cover it, but Sandro Tonali to Milan will be interesting also. How they adapt to him, because it's not the player that everyone thinks. I think I mean, you guys know Italian football very well and watch games, so you know it. But it's not Andrea Pirlo, Tonali.
No.
He's not the kind of player that everyone thinks is outside Italy, especially because he looks like Pirlo. He was compared to him. He's not the kind of player, Tonali. He's much different. And I think last year with Brescia didn't express himself at his best. I have a friend and colleague also from Brescia who basically knows Tonali since he was 14 years old. So he's if you want to know something about Tonali, ask him because he knows everything. And he told me that it's not just him that he needs to adapt to AC Milan way of playing, but it's also Milan that needs to find a way to bring him in and be part of the football he plays. And will be interesting to see. And honestly, I really, really, really want him to succeed because he's a super nice guy. He's an amazing player, and honestly, he's also the future of Italian football. So we all have to be for him.
I'm curious as to, sorry, Richard, I'm curious as to how the system works now for Milan, because if you're making this kind of investment in Sandro Tonali, and you just watched in the restart the success of the midfield partnership of Ismael Benacer and Frank Kessie, naturally you think when you watch Tonali play, he was in more of a deep lying role for Brescia. I mean, Richard and I speculated, Stevie from Milan Weekly Podcast also made the suggestion that this could be successful if Tonali plays in front of them.
Yeah,
in a 4-2-3-1 and behind a striker, or where he can do some of that passing and work some of his technique, in a more advanced position. That's going to be key, is how do you do this without disrupting the success of what's already been established with this Milan team from the restart? That seems to be the best answer. And you get all of them on the pitch.
Will be also interesting because it's exactly the opposite that Andrea Pirlo did in his career. Because Andrea Pirlo started as a trequartista that I don't know even how to translate in English, because it's a role that we only have in Italy right now. So. And then he went back and became a playmaker. And Tonali started more as a playmaker, not really playmaker, but in that kind of area. And I can see him playing there, but he's a vertical player, Tonali, so he can play everywhere, I think. And they need to find a way. But also Ibra decides there, right? The jersey you have, Frank, right there. He's the one who decides. So
He's the boss.
If Zlatan approves, he can play there. If he doesn't, stay there.
Yep.
It's fun if you watch what Mancini does with the Azzurri. He has Tonali, playing alongside Jorginho, almost in a mezzala role, and I think he could probably play that well because he plays a very vertical role. I compared him to Albertini, the way that very similar styles, very vertical instead of playing horizontally like Pirlo. So how Milan use him will be very interesting. I think, like you said, how they adapt to him, not necessarily him adapting to them. And I don't see Pioli deviating from his 4-2-3-1. Because it would be nice to see all three, Kessie, Benacer, and Tonali at the same time. But I don't think he's going to go to a 4-3-3 or anything. I think it's going to stay with that 4-2-3-1. That's his bread and butter, I guess.
Yep.
I think Pioli doesn't want to make the same mistake he made in
everywhere else
with other clubs. Because changing is always
difficult,
a risk, and I don't think after all that happened this summer, he was in danger. Ragnik, all that stuff, doesn't want to be sacked in October or November because he changes and he wants to. I think Tonali will be part of the project, will be center of the project, but maybe he has to wait a bit to have his role in this club.
Might be a process before we see him playing extensively for Milan. It's just a gradually continue with what's been successful, and then eventually, massaging those changes. Yeah. Let's dive in here. As we talk about this 2020-2021 season, and we already touched on Pirlo. We already touched on Juventus. We talked about Weston McKennie. Arthur's there too. So, Juventus, for years it's been talked about. Juventus has to do something about their midfield. They've got to do something about their midfield. What they've got isn't working, et cetera, et cetera. So, so they've done that. Kulishevsky's there now. With what is returning to that team, with Pirlo taking charge of it, I think they're going to make it 10 in a row. But, Francesco, what do you expect? And Richard, what do you expect to see, with Andrea Pirlo's Juventus that, might be a departure from what Sarri did? Or is it going to be is he just in there to manage what's always been and just work in the new players?
Richard, you start or I start?
I'll let the guest start.
Okay. Honestly, I would be surprised if Pirlo fails. I have to be honest with you, because the team he has is unbelievable. Of course, it's not like when Antonio Conte arrived at Juve and he needed to rebuild and win a Scudetto with Matri and Vucinic and Krasic, right? So I think it's not difficult right now to win a Scudetto with Juve. It's not easy. It's never easy, but it's not like a super difficult thing to do. And I expect him to win, as you said, Frank. So I think Juve are the favorites and remain the favorites and are the favorites. By saying that, also, I have to say that I think Inter need to be a title contender this season, and because they have the occasion to do it. Because Pirlo, of course, I don't think he needs much practice like Guardiola when he was at Barcelona at the beginning. It's comparable, but there might be the case where at Benevento or at Crotone there are some games that Juventus don't win, and also they did last season, but the Inter were not ready, honestly, last season to go for it. While this season, and I think Conte knows that, and also Inter know that, but they don't want to say that, and they will not say that. They need to be title contenders, and they have the chance this year to do it. But I think you are still favorite.
For me, I think, obviously Juve, there's nothing that they don't deserve anything but being contenders, right? Or the top contenders. I feel though with the Pirlo, it's so many unknowns. What I've seen in practice has been amazing stuff. He's been pushing the team. They've looked a lot better. They're almost playing Sarri ball now as opposed to when Sarri was there. But I think for me, what I've said from the beginning when Conte was hired, that year 2 would be the year he would win the Scudetto. And so for me, with the unknown of Pirlo, I'm going to just slightly put Inter over Juventus. And I think they're both up there. They're both going to be neck and neck all through the season. But I think, with Conte's plan, they're obviously with the signings, it's a win now. It's not win for the future. It's a win now with the older players that he's brought in. He has some younger players, but I think with the unknown, Inter, I think, should start off hot. And the question is, how hot can Juventus start, and can they keep the pace, and will he fade like Francesco said? So for me, I have Inter just slightly above Juventus, but I mean they're both the cream of the crop.
Also, to add what you're saying, I don't want to be drastic, but I don't think there is a future with Conte at Inter. Talking about future, exactly. This is going to be the last year for me with Conte and Inter working together. The relationship between the club and him, even after what this pace that they had, it's not gonna last long, and we know that. I'm surprised it's still going on, and they're still together at this point. And I think honestly, this is gonna be the last year with Conte being the coach of Inter Milan. So it's this year. If he doesn't make this year, it's gonna be someone else. So.
And I got a couple comments here. I mean, one of the things is it looks like Pirlo is looking at a 3-5-2. It's how he lined up against Novara. They had been talking about this multiple times in training. I'm very intrigued by it. I think it makes better use of Juan Cuadrado's talents. Instead of having them being a fullback, have him operate as a wingback. You could always, and in this system against Novara, you could always go back to a back 4 because he had Danilo in the back 3 with Bonucci and Chiellini, and you had Alexandro as the left wing back. So you can always go back to that. But
I'm laughing because that's what Allegri did.
Yeah. That's what Allegri did, and everybody hated him for it. Pirlo's doing it, and everybody loves him. But I think what works here is that he's got, he went with Kulusevski and Ronaldo together up front, and you're not talking about 2 out-and-out strikers. You're talking about 2 guys that will get the ball in space and can run at you and can do a lot of dangerous things. So maybe when they're in possession, guys like Cuadrado can come forward, when Arthur's in there, what role he has, and things like that. But then if they can hit you on the break, and with those 2 guys, my God, it could get really, really ugly for people that, have to deal with them. So, I like what they're doing there. I look at Inter, and I'm in agreement with all of you guys. I think it's Pazzo Inter. I think that the offseason provided that. I mean, absolutely, to fluff your future when you had Sandro Tonali in the bag. And in the end, going for guys like Arturo Vidal and Alexander Kolarov. And Vidal might still have a little bit left to him. Kolarov is only good for set pieces now. He can't defend. He can't keep up with anybody. He got sent off against Turkey, fouling. I can't remember who it was that he fouled, to get a second yellow. So
I know that they told me that he doesn't even train. Like he basically trains himself. So he's capable of understand when his body needs to train with the team and when it's train alone. So it's like, it's not a signing for the future, let's say, Kolarov. But that means that's what Conte wanted. That was Conte when they told him, because that's what they told him in that meeting, that there are no many financial resources for the summer. There are no financial resources, basically, apart of Hakimi. And he said, okay. He didn't say, I'm out. He said, okay, I understand. But I decide the player that we get right now for free or for nothing, basically.
Right.
So that's why you get Kolarov, you get Vidal, potentially another striker, and then we see what happens with exits. Because if there are some players that will go, there might be space for another midfielder. Yeah. But to have Kanté, because maybe that's what you want to ask, you need to sell Brozovic, you need to sell Joe Mario, you need to sell Nainggolan. It's not just very easy to do it.
Yep. And I'm looking at Atalanta and I'm looking at how they have managed to stay together. Castan is not there anymore, but they've improved. As we segue into who the challengers are, they add Miranchuk. At some point, Ilicic is going to be fit and going to get his legs back under him again. I mean, with all of the playmaking talent that Atalanta have and with what they can do to just about everybody in this league, I find Atalanta to be more of a challenger to Juventus than Inter, in my opinion. I mean, and a lot of this is the cloud hanging over Antonio Conte's head, because you've got players that are going to be under contract, Francesco, and they're going to ask, how serious do I take this guy if he's not going to be around beyond this year? I have a contract for 4 more years. Is the message going to get through? So there's those variables that we can't run away from the fact that actually happens. So if I'm going to give the hot take, I think Atalanta is more of a contender than Inter is for the Scudetto. Now, having said that, I think that they're both distant from Juve. I think Juve is going to win this thing by about 8 to 10 points when it's all said and done. But I would not be shocked if Atalanta finished second this season. They're on a trajectory, and it's not slowed down.
No. If you were in 2012, I was saying you're a fool, but you're in 2020, and that's reasonable. And
it's 2020. What else? We got to think about other things that are going to possibly happen with the year that we've had, right?
Atalanta.
Sassuolo's going to win.
Guys, we're talking about a club that was in Europa League 2 years ago, was in Champions League 2 years ago, was in Champions League last year. That's a project. It's not like, Leicester 2016 in Premier League. It's not the case. It's a club that is working so much to have this and arrive to this level. So I wouldn't be surprised at all. The only thing I don't agree with you is when you say about Conte that has more years in the contract, so how it can be explained that to the players. I think the relationship he has with the players is totally different than the one he has with the club. Okay. So if you think about Italy, when he was the coach of Italy in 2016, even there he could stay more. He could go until the World Cup, and I wish he did, because probably we were playing the World Cup at that point. Mm-hmm. So the relationship he had with the team was amazing. And as far as I know, most of the players that play with Inter right now, they're in love with him. They improve so much. So it's not like Italy 2016, because of course there are some players who are not so much happy about him. But there is a good relation with the teammates and with the squad. So what happens with the club, I think, doesn't change. The relation he has with the team.
Yep. Okay.
I think
That's my opinion. Maybe you're right. I don't know.
I'm talking about players. I'm talking about players that have contracts that are going to be there for a while, and at some point, does Conte's welcome wear out? It just kind of, and does the message get stale and things like that? I mean, those are just some of the things that.
I think the one thing we've heard always about Conte from the players is that they love him. They've always said that. So I guess that, like, kind of what Francesco was saying is that, in the locker room, it's a totally different person as to what it is with the management, and they love him. They play for him because of that. That's kind of why he won with Italy. He won with Chelsea. He's doing very well with Inter. It's because they believe in him. And I think ultimately what he says in the locker room is a different person than what we see, in front of the camera.
I don't really agree with you, because I think Conte is a very genuine guy, genuine person. He's sometimes too much, because you can see what he said on TV. Probably the day after he wouldn't said that publicly. And I know for sure that he's also with the players like he's on TV. So one day he arrives at training ground, he's the happiest person in the world, hugging people, and I love being here, and that's amazing. I want to stay here forever. The day after, he goes to the Pinetina, Piano Gentile. He wants to destroy everything and say, "Okay, I'm out. I'm leaving today." He's I don't want to say crazy, because I have so much respect for him. Really.
I'll say it.
Okay, but he's like, really, he's a genuine. He's very genuine. He's very transparent. So what you see on TV is how he is in reality. But then that also what you're saying probably is referred to how his relationship with the club. So probably what he says with Marotta and Ausilio and Zhang privately is totally different than what he actually feels with the guys that he trains every day. So there are these two mixed emotions that, at the end, few words is not going to stay much, because how can you stay with this environment for a long time? It's stressful. It's super stressful for him, but also for the club, because at one point they say, we pay you 12 million per year and you complain about everything. It's like,
all right. So, I mean, we talked about, Juve as the team to beat again. We're talking about the challengers. And then let's talk about, when we look at what happened last season, when we look at kind of with the direction that some of these clubs are taking, we saw some big surprises last year. Hellas Verona made a very nice run. Sassuolo was very entertaining to watch. Parma showed some stability in their second season. And those are some examples. Francesco, give us a team that you think could be a real surprise this season. And then give us a team that, okay, this is probably as high as they're going to get, and they're probably due for a fall this year.
I start with the second one, because I already thought about it before, and it's Hellas Verona, honestly. Okay. I don't see them, being on the level of last year. Also because they sold a player like Ramani, Amrabat, who were key for them. And, replacing them, it's not easy. That's why also Juric wasn't even that sure to stay, because he knew that it was going to be way more difficult this year. I'm not saying they're going to be relegated. I'm not saying that it will be a total disaster. I'm saying that, from a Europa League level, I don't think they can reach that level again. The team that I think that can be a surprise this season, and I really hope so, actually, it's Benevento. I think they can be a surprise, because Inzaghi has the right experience right now to coach in Serie A. He already coached with AC Milan, already coached with Bologna. It was a disaster with Bologna. It was with Milan, you tell me, but it wasn't. It wasn't.
It could have been better.
It could have been better, exactly. So I think Benevento also, they don't want to make the same mistakes they did 3 years ago when they arrived for the first time in Serie A, and they did the first part of the season was shocking for how bad it was. So I think there is also this. They want a revenge, and they can be a surprise. And then I expect a lot from Cagliari, honestly. I'm expecting so much from Cagliari, but not only because not because of the club, because I know how they work and that they're not a problem, because Di Francesco, honestly, he needs another positive experience. He was super good at Sassuolo. He was good at Roma for the first part and not that good for the second part. A disaster at Sampdoria. So he needs, I think, to rebuild his image, and Cagliari is the perfect place to do that.
Yep. Richard, who's in for a surprise? Who are we in for a surprise with? And who's probably hit their ceiling and is going to move down a little?
That's a great shout about all that stuff that Francesco was talking about. Who's due for a fall? I mean, I'm with you there with the Hellas Veronas. For sure, we thought that Hellas Verona would they did really well last year, and it's going to be hard to replicate that for sure. I think another team you could look at with that is Parma. Well, they started out very hot last year. They did fade at the end. I think the hiring of Liverani leaves me questioning whether they're going to continue that same kind of style that they had at the beginning of the season. They've lost Kulishevsky, obviously, and some other key players. So I'm not really so sure about Parma this year. Team, I'm going to be set a surprise this year. Obviously Benevento, I agree with that 100%. I think, Sassuolo was a surprise for us last year, but I think they're going to be even sniffing more into the Europa League hunt this year. They kept a lot of the players. They kept Jeremy Boga, Caputo still there. They got a pretty decent squad. They've done really well. Guerrero de Frel's there. It's a good squad, and they're going to make it difficult for the teams up top. I mean, obviously the top, looking at the Scudetto contenders, it's a tight race. There's probably 4 teams, arguably. Champions League, there's even more teams that could probably make it. It's going to be a very big fight. And then Europa League's even a bigger fight, I think. And I think Sassuolo has a good chance to make it into that fight, the way they played down the stretch.
I mean, I think adding a guy like Vlad Chiriches they desperately needed some help in defense. And having a guy who at least offers experience, may not be the first guy we're turning to for a center back, for our favorite teams. But I think that he's better than, what they've had there. And then Ion coming over from Fortuna Dusseldorf. Richard, you're familiar with him probably a little bit more than Francesco and I are. So those are some upgrades there. And if those guys pan out with the attack that Sassuolo have going forward, we always joked about Francesco. We were calling Sassuolo, they were the fun bad team of Serie A. They were so bad, but they were also so fun to watch because there were so many goals. There was like 5 or 6 goals in a game every time you saw them play. So
that's the style of their manager also. So
it's very chaotic. So, if they can get things tightened up, I mean, and there's some guys that are, certainly, to Richard's point, you talk Boga, you talk Berardi, you talk Caputo, Locatelli at the moment staying. Hamed Junior Traore was very good down the stretch. So you're looking at that. You're looking at Haraslin trying to fit in there, Raspadori, Barabia. So, and we didn't even get to Filip Juricic, who has a lot of experience. So there's plenty there for Sassuolo to certainly make some noise. I like that shout, Richard, as far as a surprise is concerned. And then as far as a team that's, probably reached, I'm going to shoot a little bit higher as far as the disappointments. And I'm worried about Roma. I think that there's been a standard that, Roma fans expect, competing for top 4. I look at this squad, Zaniolo goes down again, which is terrible, and I really mean it. I hope they take their time with bringing him back. That they're not going to try to have him back by February, like reports are suggesting. But when you take a look at, they're bringing in Pedro for free, which obviously offers a lot of experience. But you look at you look at them as a collective and as a defense. It's scary, and I don't think they have the players. And if Dzeko goes, Now, what are you looking at for a center forward? Can Milik do it? I mean, if you ask the Napoli supporters, if you ask our friends over at Far From Vesuvius, they can't stand Milik. They can't get him out fast enough. So if we're going to have this merry-go-round Roma, of strikers, Roma loses big time. I don't think Roma finished top 6. When I look at I think that Lazio has enough stability, and I think they're the better capital team right now. I look at Atalanta, I look at Inter, I look at Milan has made tremendous improvements. Gattuso is going to have Napoli fighting in every match that they're in. And then you're talking about the elements of surprise, like a Sassuolo, like a Cagliari. I think that Roma might find themselves in for a difficult season. And by difficult, I mean, it would not shock me to see them finish 7th or 8th this year.
Plus, there is new property coming in, and that's always a problem in this kind of season. I mean, not a problem because in this case it's a good opportunity for the club, but I'm saying that they confirmed the coach, but you don't. I mean, could they really change it? Like it's like in these cases you just go on with what you have, and then on the way you change things. So like they don't have a sport director right now. They don't have a, which is in Premier League it's normal. So when I say this to my colleagues in Premier League, they say, oh, what's a sport director? Like, what are you talking about? Like, that's important in Italy. So like we need him. And plus the manager, we see what's gonna happen. I don't know if he will last like long with this club. Maybe yes, maybe not. But a new property coming in is always a problem, in a season. If I remember the last ones, I think when Milan changed it was a disaster. When Inter also with Suning arrived, they had the season with 4 managers. Remember with the Burr. So that was the first season of Suning with Inter Milan. So it's always a problem. So I agree with you in this case, Frank.
Yeah. So. All right, so we've been talking a little bit about new managers. We talked about Andrea Pirlo at Juventus, Eusebio Di Francesco at Cagliari, which that's another victory lap Richard did a couple of months ago when they were looking for a manager. We said on this podcast, how about EDF going to Cagliari?
Yeah, that was awesome.
And then it happened. What's that?
Was a good call, this one.
Yeah. Marco Giampaolo going to try. Speaking of career revivals, he's at Torino. Rolando Moran has landed in Genoa, and then Fabio Liverani at Parma. So let's take Pirlo at Juve out of the picture because I think we're all kind of in a consensus. Richard, you might tip Inter for the title, but we're all in a consensus that Pirlo really can't fail with this Juve team. So, Di Francesco at Cagliari, Giampaolo at Torino, Moran at Genoa, Liverani at Parma, and Francesco, who's best set up for success? Who'll be the most successful of those 4?
Out of these, I think Giampaolo, honestly.
Okay.
I know it's a weird call, maybe because for what he has done with AC Milan, but I think he's the first one who wants a sort of revenge, of course, because everyone was blaming him last year. Rightly so, probably. So he's the one who wants to change the idea of everyone again. I like Maran, to be honest. I really like him as a manager, and I hope he does well. But I know that working with Genoa is a mess. So if he arrives at the end of the season, it's already a big success, to be honest. So out of these, also seeing how is the team, I say Torino is probably with Giampaolo, I would say.
And I don't hate that idea, to be honest. And the reason I say that is because when you take a look at the squad that's in place there,
exactly.
It fits what he wants to do. He wants that, that 4-3-1-2 that he saw success with at Sampdoria, and then Empoli prior to that. You got guys like Iago Falque who could play in that trequartista role. Simone Verde can do it, and then you can play a 2-man. You got Belotti and Zaza, in attack. Berenguer can mix in there. So the tools are there for him to be successful and implement what he wants to do. You bring in a Carlo Lanetti who understands that system and can fit. He brings back, Thomas Rincon also is another solid midfielder in this mix as well. And they've got goalkeeping and they've got defending. I mean, Sirigu is a solid goalkeeper. This is just a Torino side that just lost their way, over the restart. Longo was just a terrible fit for them. So I don't mind that shout. We called Di Francesco to Cagliari. That's the one that I want to see do the best.
I already said this as the surprise of the season, so I had to change, right?
Yeah, no. And sometimes you got to go against the grain, and that's fine. But and I don't hate the idea of Giampaolo being successful at Torino. I actually think it's a good shout. The thing when we look at Di Francesco, and he ran his course at Roma, and then when he got the Sampdoria job, talking about another crazy owner, and not given the squad and not given the players that he needs to be successful there. I mean, I remember the opening game last season against Lazio. He's playing his 4-3-3, and his front three are all strikers, and none of them can move. So he's now at Cagliari where he has a reasonable chance to put in what he wants to do there. Marco Rog seems to be an ideal winger, an ideal wide guy that could fit what Di Francesco wants to do. Marian is a playmaker out of the midfield, as we talked about. So there's some pieces here, and then you have Giovanni Simeone in season 2. He should be successful in this setup if it's done right. So I think it's between those two guys, Richard.
Yeah, I do like EDF. I think Di Francesco has a good opportunity to do well with Cagliari, as both of you have mentioned. It just seems like it's a perfect storm, and I think he'll have a good revival with Cagliari. Cagliari started out strong, and then they faded last year, and I think we all hoping that EDF does well this time around. So I'm not going to go too much on Cagliari, but in terms of players, the manager I think is going to go first. I'm not sure about Liverani. Giampaolo, I'm still also not sure of, but I think for some reason with me, and I'm going to go opposite of you, Francesco. I think Maran, some reason with him and Genoa, it's just not linking up with me, and I have a bad feeling Genoa is going down this year because of Maran, and not just Maran, the team as well. But some reason I want to pick I want to pick somebody else, but Maran keeps jumping out at me that he's going to not do well there and be the first one to go, and I hope not. I like the guy. But it just keeps bouncing out to me, and I hate to see that.
Yeah. Let's segue to that. Who is the first manager to get sacked, Francesco? Who do you see getting? Who you getting see sent off first?
I have honestly, I hope not, but I have a bad feeling about Claudio Ranieri this season.
Okay.
But not because of him. I think I love him, and I think he's a great manager. Also, last season said that. But this summer Sampdoria didn't do anything. No. They're not even discussing players, basically. Yeah. So I find him, I find it difficult. The Sampdoria, I would say between him and Gotti, Udinese, because if you see the squad that Udinese have, I don't know how they can stay in Serie A, honestly. So they need to do a miracle, both of them, to stay in Serie A.
I thought I was going to be on an island when I pick Udinese for the drop later on when we talk about who gets relegated. So I'm glad I'm not the only one. And I'm for that reason, I think Gotti gets the sack. I think you gotta correlate who gets the sack first with who the crazy owners are.
Yeah,
and the Pozzos aren't very patient, and no. That's evident at both clubs that they own, Udinese and at Watford. And I think that they'll have a run of poor results. To open the season. And then I think that that's going to translate to Gotti getting sacked as hard as he worked to get the job. But
that's why I said Ranieri, right? Because it's Ferrero there.
Yeah, Ferrero. So, but I mean, Udinese, you're taking Fofana out of this team. You're taking Ken Sema out of this team, who was very useful in terms of their survival, through the restart, played a big role in Udinese's win over Juventus. And you're slowly starting to get rid of players like that. Rodrigo De Paul, a lot of talk about him getting sold. So what's left there? I mean, Juan Musso might be our goalkeeper of the season again, because he's probably going to average 9 or 10 saves a game, but he's also going to concede 3 or 4 a game. So it's not looking good. So yeah, I'm tipping Gotti from Udinese as the first to get sacked. Richard, how about you? Maran
for me. It's with the same thing with the owner, with the Genoa, and
yep.
I don't like that situation for some reason. It's just bugging me. So Maran.
Genovese Calcio, not looking good in our opinion.
I know. I hate to see it.
So no, that's for sure. So, moving on to the newly promoted sides, we've been talking about each of them a little bit. Benevento, Crotone, and Spezia. Are we all in agreement? I think, the way the moves have been made, Benevento seems to be the most likely to survive out of the 3 if you had to pick one. I'm hesitant over Pippo Inzaghi as manager because he's a brilliant Serie B manager between what he did at Benevento and then what he did prior to that at Venezia, which earned him the Bologna job. But then he gets into Serie A and he's a deer in headlights and he gets the sack pretty quick. So that's where I'd only be hesitant. But when I look at these teams on paper, I have to say Benevento. There's no way Inzaghi can screw this one up, is there?
No, as I said, I think they want to change, what they have done 3 years ago. So they really, I think they can survive. I'm also actually positive about the two others. I'm not that, like last year I was sure that if not 2 or 3 were going down. Like I remember last year I said in the One Football prediction that we have done, I said the Spal, I said Brescia, and I said Hellas Verona, and I was wrong, of course, with Verona, but I was almost right with all of them. This season, I'm really it's difficult to predict, and I would say because the one who came up from the Serie B, they are doing an interesting transfer window. Also Spezia, I think they will be relegated, but they will try to survive and will fight a lot. Crotone, they're buying a lot of players, but when you buy a lot of players, it's not always a good thing, right? Yeah. So I agree with you. With the 3, I think Benevento is there most likely.
Richard?
Yeah, I agree. I think Benevento looks the most certain to survive. I like the moves all 3 teams are doing, like you guys are saying. For me, I think Crotone has some good players on their team. Good Serie A veterans, La Spezia as well. I think.
Sorry, I opened the window because here in Italy it's almost dark, so the light.
I was saying I think La Spezia and Crotone will make it interesting because I think both Genovese clubs are going to be in the fight, and maybe some other teams as well. But Benevento, it looks to me as of right now with the moves they're making, some fantastic moves that they're going to survive. And La Spezia and Crotone, I think, are going to give teams their money's worth. It's going to be difficult for sure, but I think they're doing some decent moves. They're doing pretty good moves overall, especially compared to Sampdoria, like you said. So it'll be interesting. It may, it'd be fantastic to see 3 teams, stay in the league after get promoted. But for me, at least, certainly Benevento, I think is going to stay up.
Yep. All right. Now on to individual players, and this is the one that I have to defend. I have to defend my championship on now. So the Capocannonieri race. Obviously, we've got a lot of talented players. There's a lot more goals being scored in Serie A nowadays than a generation ago. A lot of it is because of the talent that this league boasts in attacking positions. That a lot of it also is because there's some pretty bad teams in this league as well that lead to that happening. So I'll put you guys on the spot, then I'll give you my pick. I thought about this last night already, but Francesco, who do you like for Capocannonieri this year?
Honestly, I think in this case you have to start because you are the one who
you're the reigning champions. Come on.
Well, no, because here's what's going to happen. Because if I do it, you guys are going to just agree with me. I want to hear what you do.
No.
All right, I'll go first, and I am going with Romelu Lukaku to be Capocannonieri this year.
You're not going with Immobile.
What's that?
Not going with Immobile.
Not going with Immobile. And my reasons are, the addition of Hakimi. For all this crazy stuff we've said about Inter. I think that he acclimated himself quite well in his first season. When we talk about when strikers come over for a first season in Serie A, traditionally it's tough for them. You rarely have a guy coming in and scoring 20 plus goals, not like, Lukaku did. I think that the support that he's going to have around him, and you look at a player like Hakimi on the right-hand side, the players that he's going to have on the left-hand side, a support striker, whether it's an Alexis Sanchez, whether Lautaro is still there, and then he also gets playmaking from the midfield. And let's also not forget that back 3, some of those guys are pretty good passers. Stefan de Vrij, Kolarov, if he finds some passing range, there are going to be a lot of opportunities for Lukaku to eat. And then not to mention, he can also create his own chances. I don't see 36 from anybody this year, but I can see Lukaku scoring 29 to 30. And I think that can 29 to 30, maybe as high as 32. And I will go for him as my Capocannonieri this year. George is saying Joao Pedro for 31 this year. Good luck. we like Cagliari. We don't like him that much. Francesco.
Okay, I'll be honest. I picked Lukaku in my prediction with One Football, but I changed it here because
just
to contradict you.
Okay.
No. I think Lukaku is totally one name, but I try to be more romantic because it's the year of the Euros. and I really hope that Ciccio Caputo makes it, and it would be amazing. I think they can score a lot of goals because Sassuolo are goal machine, as you said also before. And with the Euros coming up this year, he will be even more motivated to score because he scored so much in the last games, but not so much in the first part of the season. So maybe he can start already scoring, and I say Ciccio Caputo. But Lukaku is also my other option. So I partly agree with you.
Okay, fair. Richard.
Sandro Tonali. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
I'm just kidding. I was certain you were going to pick Immobile, so I was like, I'm going to go Lukaku. So now that you picked Lukaku, I'm going to go away from that. I'm not going to say Immobile. The other player, I think Atalanta are going to score many goals again this year. Duvan Zapata, him or Muriel, they're both going to be up there. But I think Duvan Zapata with the starting striker role is going to have a chance to score a boatload of goals. I mean, Atalanta, we know they're going to score around 100 goals this year again. So for me, it's Atalanta going to get many goals, and Duvan Zapata is going to get a big chunk of that. So a big year for him, I think.
Excellent stuff. So I've got Lukaku. Francesco kind of has Lukaku, but he's going to go for Caputo just for the sake of being different, and then Duvan Zapata. So I like that. Yeah, and I want to see Caputo get some run in that national team setup in that 4-3-3. It's as I watch Belotti and I watch Immobile, play in that role, and I think that maybe, and I made this comment against Netherlands, I think Immobile probably played his best game under Mancini just recently, but Caputo is a 4-3-3 striker, and would like to just see him get the opportunity in those games and see it, because if it's not unreasonable to think that he can outperform each of those guys in that role for Italy. Sometimes you just got to think about who fits. I mean, heck, France didn't take Benzema with them to the World Cup in 2018, so
did okay for them.
Yep, that worked out okay. So, all right. So now, finally, on the spot. And then we'll have Who Won Calcio Twitter. All right. Top 4. Who makes the Europa League and who gets relegated?
All together, I say.
Juventus?
Yeah.
You first.
So I say top 4. I say Juventus. I say not in order. I just say who makes it to a Champions League.
Oh, you got to pick the champion.
Okay, Juventus champion.
Yeah,
I already said that. So Juve wins. Then I say not in order, but who goes to Champions League? Inter Milan. I say Atalanta, and I say Lazio.
Okay, same for this past year. Okay.
Then I say exactly same as last year. In the Europa League, I say for sure Napoli and Milan, and I'm not sure about the third one because I agree with you that Roma can be a tough year. I would say more a surprise, and I say Sassuolo in this case.
Okay.
So I can justify my Ciccio Caputo being the capocannoniere of the season.
Right.
And then for relegation, I say Udinese because, as I said already, I don't see them well. Then I say Spezia, and then I say Sampdoria.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you got Crotone and Benevento staying up.
Yeah.
Okay. Richard.
Okay. Let's see. So champion, I'm going to stick with Inter to win the Scudetto. Top 4 in no particular order. Inter, Juventus, Atalanta, and Milan.
Okay.
In the Europa League spots, I'm going to go Lazio, Napoli, and Roma just missing out, or in 7th place. And then relegation, man, that's a tough one. I think that's almost the toughest one to call.
Always.
I like to shout about Udinese. I think I'm gonna go. Oh man, I hate to say this, and I'm gonna get blasted for this. I'm gonna say Sampdoria, Genoa, and La Spezia.
All right. So
they will love you in Liguria,
None of us are going to Liguria anytime soon.
Go to Cinque Terre, amazing place there. But
okay. I got Juventus will make it 10 years in a row, and I'll pick top 4 in this order. I think it's Juventus 1, Atalanta 2, Inter 3, Milan 4. Fifth and sixth go to Napoli and Lazio, and seventh is Sassuolo. I agree with you, Francesco. I think they've strengthened enough, and I think Roma's going to have a lot of uncertainty about them, and enough that it's going to take them out of the traditional top six. Somebody always falls, or somebody's always due for some regression and a fall, and I think it's Roma this time. I'll stick with that. So relegation, I'm going to relegate Spezia. I'm not totally convinced on Crotone yet. And I want them to prove me wrong.
The jersey, I couldn't pick them.
If Crotone stay up, you'll have to ship me the jersey then, because I'm picking them to go down. So I'm going to go Spezia, Crotone, and Udinese. I think Sampdoria and Genoa are awful, but they're just good enough to survive. So that's where I'll go. I'll go Juve, Atalanta, Inter, Milan, and then Napoli, Lazio, fifth and sixth, Sassuolo, seventh, and then Udinese, Crotone, and Spezia for the drop. So,
okay, all right.
Finish off with a little Who Won Calcio Twitter. This is our hashtag game that we play, Francesco. We try to find from people on Twitter that give some of the funniest, sometimes mean takes on Calcio, and we put it on the board, and we try to pick a winner each week. So we
you go first, because I have to find. I saved some of them, but I have to look for them first, because I did my homework. So
okay,
I'll read them. I'll read them for you. Okay. This one was nominated by Richard. It is sent by @Tamsa7A. Her name is Stefania. It's, I guess, in relation to Juventus. Is this Juventus's third shirt?
Yeah, third shirt. Yeah.
Oh, geez. Love the guy wearing it, but I really hate the kit. I can't stop seeing Fred Flintstone. Why not gold or return to pink like the 2011, 2016 kits? Okay. Not bad. Not bad. I put this one up @ManLikeBona. I would assume it's for Bonaventura. Switched from Milan Brescia to Liverpool Leeds, and goodness me, this drop in quality. That's a good one. Let's see. Saturnian 96. 4 pictures of Tonali that will make you say that's not Tonali, that's Kylo Ren. Did I say that right? Is it Kylo Ren or Kylo Ren? Kylo Ren? Okay. So yeah, that was good. Now I'm not up on current.
You gotta admit the pictures of Kylo Ren look exactly like Tonali.
Yeah, it does. Oh my, yeah. So that one made it. Uncle Sharma @RSharmZZ. Orsato getting a Champions League medal before Juventus. With a picture of Orsato getting his medal for officiating the Champions League final. We put this on. George Widmer put this on. It's not Calcio related, but we decided to throw it on there. Mbappe's first half highlights versus Bayern, and it's the turtle from the tortoise and the hare walking and kicking a football. So clever, not bad. And then finally, hang on. We got a couple more. Pouty Saudi @PoutySaudi. Buffon will get a Champions Medal as a lifetime honorary board member posthumously. So, well, after his death, they'll give him one because they feel sorry. Let's see.
I have this one that I saw right now. I mean, I was looking to another one I couldn't find. And you guys know Statutos, right? It's one of the Calcio Twitter biggest stars. Yeah. And he just posted this like 1 hour, no, like 10 minutes ago, and that's amazing, I think. It says Alan, player of the game against Tottenham, that they won against Tottenham, Alan with Everton. And there is the picture of Gattuso and McDonald here.
Let me see. And that's Statuto? Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Looking for him here. Okay, yeah, there he is. Yeah. He's a legend. Let's see here. I gotta let's see. Where is that? Alan, man of the match. Yeah. Sort of McDonald's. All right. Yeah, we got to throw this up there.
That's good.
And then the only other one Let's see. The only other one that I had in addition to that finally is where is it? From Art Morelli. Let's see. And this was from back on August 9th. This is how long it's been since we've done a
Show.
So August 9th, here's somebody's nonna pulling weeds out front with a fucking machete. Jesus Christ, I miss Brooklyn. It's a picture of some old lady with a big knife and a bunch of weeds on the ground. So
Wow.
It's hard to see.
Oh my. So who wins Calcio Twitter out of all of those guys?
For me, I like the one that Francesco did, and then Uncle Sharma with his or Sato getting the medal before you.
Yeah, that one was good. Yeah.
So we're gonna get. I'm going for Uncle Sharma too.
Okay, let's go with him. Yeah.
All right. So Uncle Sharma, if you are listening, you have won Calcio Twitter with
Award.
your congratulations. We don't give out an award for this. We just, but your take on your picture of Orsato saying Orsato winning a Champions League medal before Juventus. So there was one other one at Alessio Tackle back on August 7th after Juve got eliminated from the Champions League. It's a video of Buffon with his head in his hands and saying, "Now I need to beg for another 2 years contract." But no, Uncle Sharma is our winner.
Totally.
So hashtag Who Won Calcio Twitter. Be on the lookout for some funny Calcio tweets, and we will read them on the air on the next episode. So, and that'll do it for this edition of Serie A Sit Down Preview Della Madonnina in the books. Francesco, floor is yours. Anything that you want to plug that our listeners can find and where they can follow you?
No, I mean, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure, really nice to talk to you. And as I told you before, I lived in the US, so every time I'm connected to your amazing country, I'm always happy. So
wonderful.
Thank you for having me. I mean, you can find me on Twitter, on Instagram, whatever you want. I try to answer on DMs whenever I can, but this summer became out of my hands, so I can answer every time. So
yeah, we won't blame you. We won't blame you if it's out of your hands over the next few weeks, especially. So
thank you so much, guys.
Excellent. Richard, how about you?
Yeah, as always, you can follow me at R_KHARMAN. I just wanted to say that, we're getting closer to our 3,000 followers here on Twitter. So, I think, we're going to be releasing some merchandise here soon. So, whoever gets that 3,000th subscription, we'll maybe send a gift out to them. Maybe that some swag. So yeah, thank you again for everyone who listened.
I don't put any money into this, so I
credit card. Sorry, I didn't know if you knew that.
I'm at FTC_21 on Twitter, so you can follow me there. Serie A Sit Down, we're available on Apple Podcasts. We have our own channel there. We have our own channel on SoundCloud. You can find us on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever podcasts are played. You can find Serie A Sit Down. The YouTube channel right here where you are watching us live. Please drop a like. Please subscribe. We're always presenting content. And Richard with an excellent video on Sandro Tonali recently, how he's more like Demetrio Albertini than Andrea Pirlo. Very compelling take there. But plenty of other stuff as we go along. We'll do clips from this podcast. I might even start shooting some videos here too as soon as I can get the equipment. So we got it. I got to evolve here, man. Gotcha. So at Serie A Sit Down on Twitter, on Instagram. You can also follow us on Facebook. Drop messages anywhere there for maybe any ideas for our podcast or anything you would like us to cover in future podcasts. So going to be an amazing season, going to be a chaotic season. We're looking forward to it. Next weekend, it kicks off already. And we can't wait because this Premier League football that they call it was leaving me a little bit depressed. Bring me back my calcio.
Agree.
So, Francesco, was an honor having you on. Let's get you back on again soon.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
All right.
Best of luck on the new show.
You bet. Best of luck on the new podcast. We will definitely be listening. Thank you. And for Richard, I'm Frank. Thanks as always. And as always, make sure you tell your paisans about us. Ciao.